We're dancing. Yeah, the Yankees are dancing into the postseason yet again. It might not be a pennant year, or it might. This could be the official chase for 28. We don't really know, but nonetheless, we are pumped because the Yankees are in the dance to say the least. They are playing into October. They've locked it down, and as of the time of recording, they are tied atop the American League East. It's pretty much all sunshine and rainbows in Yankee land, but of course, if you know Bomber Boys, there'll be something to say about it for Justin and I. Justin Chevalella, I'm Dylan Price. We're going to have a hell of a time tonight talking about the Yankees dancing. I'm not going to sing again into the
Thank
postseason.
God.
Into October, and we're pumped about it. It's going to be a great show. We've got a big weekend ahead for Justin and I, a big football weekend ahead, but it's still time to talk about the Yankees. It's still time to talk about the postseason. We're happy people right now, I think, but I still got to ask, Justin, how are you?
You said it. We're happy people right now. I mean, just thinking about what the Yankees have done since we last recorded, going 6-1 now, I believe, over that stretch. The whiteout coming up this weekend, which we're making our return to State College because we clearly haven't been back enough since we graduated.
Really?
Oh, and just to add on to the week for me, Jackson Dart is the new starting quarterback of the New York Giants. I mean, come on. It's lining up perfectly these last couple of days. Dylan, how about yourself?
I'm doing good. Some fun stuff going to get to talk about with the Bomber Boys podcast audience very, very soon, but we're going to keep them waiting a little bit here. Some stuff stirring. I think we've got some fun stuff in the works, some fun projects. Yep, stirring the pot. But as you said, it's a big weekend ahead. Obviously, the whiteout. Jackson Dart starting for you. I got to watch that Lane Kiffin documentary. I am very, very pumped about it. I didn't get a chance to watch it tonight. Did you watch it?
I clicked on after, or ESPN was on my TV after the walk with my dog, and I was like, I came in 12 minutes too late. I want to
You got to
watch
watch
it from
the
the
whole
start.
thing.
So
Yeah.
I just shut it off. And maybe that's what we do at some
I
point
was
this
just going
weekend.
to say.
Maybe
I
tomorrow
was
night.
I was going to say, probably not in Happy Valley. I think we'll be a
No.
little bit busy enough there. But listen, I think we got a good night tomorrow night to watch Lane Kiffin. We can chill out, relax, chillax before we make our trek to Happy Valley on Saturday. But in the meantime, we got a lot to talk about
We
because, of
do.
course, I'm going to go right into the banners. I'm hosting the show this week, so I make the calls. It's a pinstripe postseason, baby. There was champagne a popping, Budweiser's a knocking, and the Yankees are dancing into the postseason at a game that we were going to be at. We should have been at, but obviously a lot going on right now in the land of Dylan and Justin. So we couldn't make it out for the game, but it was a game that we figured would happen at some point. We figured they'd get into the dance, but how they got into it was definitely exciting. Some ticker notes you're seeing on the scene below: 60th postseason appearance in the organization's history. Definitely very, very intriguing, dramatic way to get into the postseason, but they're in the dance. So before we get into anything else, before we get into the postseason picture, the state of the team right now, I just want to say to you and kind of throw this question in the air. How do you feel knowing that it's done? It's locked and loaded. There's jockeying for position. There's the American League East right now, which we will talk about, but they're in the dance, and that has to be a reassuring thing, right?
Yeah, and it's gonna sound stupid to say because obviously everything means more in the postseason, but the hardest part of your season is done. And I really like the way that Michael Kay always presents it. You play 162 games in 180 days. And yes, there's still 4 games at the time of this recording left to play, but you have gotten to the point where you really can't take off based off what happened in the AL East this week, which no one was really expecting. But in a sense, you don't have to worry. If you lose a game, well, crap, you're going to play in the wild card next week, but you're in the playoffs. You don't have to win out to make the playoffs, anything like that. It is a sigh of relief. There is a reason to celebrate. And I know that was a big talking point in New York today for whatever reason. Oh, they shouldn't have been popping champagne and drinking the Budweisers. Why not? Like I just said, 162 games, you're taxing your body in 180 days. You should be popping the champagne and having those Budweisers and letting yourself loose a little because during the grind of a season, you're not cracking those Budweisers and you're certainly not spraying that champagne at all. So really that part is over. The hardest part of it, getting through that, enduring the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. And this season more than ever, it feels like those ebbs and flows were more prominent for the Yankees, right? I have the stats in front of me. You go from 35-20 in your first 55 games this season. Then you go 25-34 over your next stretch of 59 games. And now you're 30-14 since August 6th, which is the best record in baseball. The ebbs and flows have been prominent, but that doesn't matter anymore. And on top of that, you're getting hot at the right time. Well, you're not getting hot. You are hot at the right time. And I texted you last night after clinching, and it remains true. Baseball is the one sport momentum can really carry you. The hottest team going into the postseason is the scariest team to face, and the New York Yankees are that. Yes, you can argue the Guardians maybe, but the Guardians are being helped a lot by the Tigers' failures here to even be in this playoff picture. The Yankees, they're doing it really on their own. Yes, the Blue Jays have fallen off, but that's a completely different side of the story. The Yankees have clinched the playoffs on their own without, really help from anywhere else. And that is good. They are hot, and they are the best team in baseball since August 6th, since that 5-game losing streak where you and I were, blowing up, and rightfully so, because it seemed like everything was going up against the Yankees at the time. But you've survived the ebbs and flows, and that's what's most important. You're going to the postseason, and 60th time in organization history, we're spoiled. That's for sure.
Yeah. We really are, because it's funny how nonchalant a lot of Yankees fans are. Most Yankees are. The New York media is. Just kind of the general consensus is that it's an expectation, not a kind of achievement for the Yankees. And I think that's probably the perfect way to put it, that when the Yankees don't make the postseason, that's a kind of lost season, a bad season, maybe even a rebuilding season. But when the Yankees do make the postseason, okay, the standard was achieved. Now what do you do in October? What do you do from here? What do you do the rest of the way? And I think that's a lot of the perspective for the Yankees. But in a season like this, in the season, I love the way you put it, and a show that we use the phrase ebbs and flows all too much, especially me. I love that.
I've developed it from you. I've taken it from you.
Well, it's the same way I think I say percolating a lot more now than you.
And let me get this straight and give credit where credit is due. That is Walt Clyde Frazier in those Knicks games. He's always saying percolating, and I took that and I started. Now you got it going too.
And I was going to say, I don't brew my own coffee. I don't percolate anything. So I don't know where the hell I got that from. So it's definitely you. But anyways, the ebbs and flows, though, for as much as we overuse that phrase, particularly me, this has been the perfect way to describe the season, because it really has been. You go with a great start for the second year in a row, and then you come back down to reality and you do it at a screeching halt. I mean, it felt like this team was destined to lose Boone. And we were part of the crew that was saying, maybe he's not going to make it through the rest of the season. And that was not just us. We were probably the less loud crowd on that regard. And so I think that's probably the best way to describe the season, where it almost feels sweeter than it normally does, despite it being the expectation, not the achievement, that they did get to the dance. Because for so many years, it's just, oh, they need to make it in, and then we'll see what they do from there. This year, it was a war to make it in. And for a team that is 90-68, yeah, I know that sounds crazy, and we are very harsh to the team more often than not. But for a team that really had to grit their teeth, fight tooth and nail, this feels like a team that, as you said perfectly, they are the hottest team in baseball right now. They're clicking at the right time. There are not many rotations I would want to face in the baseball picture as a whole, in all of the postseason picture, that are more stacked than the Yankees rotation right now. The lineup seems to be gelling and clicking at the right time, albeit there are some holes that we will still be able to poke in. But when you get into the postseason, the best thing about the postseason is that it is a limited schedule. It is if you are really cut out for this dance, you are going to prove it. It's why that last week I made my comments I did about the Brewers and some other teams about, they might have been great in the regular season, but I don't know how they'll fare in the postseason. And that's why the Yankees right now getting hot. It's a little bit reminiscent of the Atlanta Braves a few seasons ago, where they're getting hot at the right time, and they might not be the most talented team in baseball. They might not be the best team in baseball. But sure as hell, if they get into the dance, anything can happen. So I think it's refreshing to see that it's officially signed, sealed, delivered, that they're in. Another phrase that I say all too often on this program. But I think it's kind of all seasons sweeter this season, just because of the war that they had to get through to get to this point. And again, doing it in pretty cool fashion yet again. Jose Caballero, who has played a limited stint with this team, but has been one of the heroes of this team in the back half of the season, sending them into the postseason. Another walk-off into the postseason. And for all that we make of Aaron Boone, to make it in his first 7 of 8 seasons, I think sometimes we are too hard on Booney. I think you and I have both said that in the past. But I think the national narrative sometimes is too hard on Booney, and he gets them into the dance. And as he said it perfectly, I agree with you. And I think that's why we're not doing a specific segment we typically do tonight, at least about that regard, is that I'm all for celebrating. 162 is
Yeah.
a grind, but it's not just 162. This team has been together since late February. They will be together until October, and when in October defines the rest of their season, but they have been together for a lot of time. It has been blood, it has been sweat, it's been tears. And honestly, this Yankees team has had turnover, but is not a significant amount of turnover. This is the same crew that has gritted their teeth, and they have been through this whole ride together. They deserve to celebrate. Hell, they deserve to have a hangover game today where they lost, but they grit their teeth, they win, they beat White Sox, they give them 100 losses, the worst team in baseball, and they
But
move
20
forward.
games better than last year.
They move forward. And so now they move into a kind of conversation here that I think is going to be the biggest part of this program today, because as much as we'd love to sit here and talk about, all the success of the Yankees right now, and we can break down every facet, but we're kind of at that point in the season where we can go through the bullpen, we can go through the lineup, we can go through all of that. Everything seems to be clicking right now. So we kind of got to talk about the trajectory. We kind of got to talk about what's next. We kind of got to talk about the playoff picture, which as it stands right now, just to run you through it, the Toronto Blue Jays would hold the number 1 seed in the American League. They also are now tied with the New York Yankees for the number 1 seed in the American League and for the American League East lead. So as late as Justin and I are recording, it's probably the perfect time to record because the Yankees win the Red Sox win, even though you said yesterday it sucks to root for them. I love that dirty water right now. I'm not going to love it in a game from now, but as it currently stands, I'm all for the Red Sox winning right now. I said it last week. I don't want to see the Red Sox in the first round if I'm the Yankees. Detroit is not just slumping. The brakes have fallen off, and this is a team that could see themselves losing their postseason hopes very quickly here. So it's kind of gone off the rails for Detroit. Cleveland has fought themselves back into the picture, and not just back into the picture. They are in a really good spot in the picture. Seattle is in the dance, and that is really cool to see. So that's just the look at the American League. Just to quickly give you the National League, even though it's not in the ticker below. Mets, as it stands, would still potentially be in the dance. You have the Dodgers and Phillies and Brewers who are currently in comfortable position. And then the Padres and Cubs are in the dance as it stands as well. Cubs clinched as well. So that's just a quick glance. But I think we got to talk about the American League because clearly the American League is a lot more contending. The American League's more of a battle, but suddenly we go from last week saying, don't want to really see the Boston matchup, and especially if we don't have home field, and home field's important, to now a week later with the success of the Yankees, the slump of the Blue Jays, the Yankees are on a kind of one-way street with the record and the teams that they have in front of them with the White Sox and the Orioles and the Blue Jays battles in front of them. They have a legitimate shot at the American League East, and not just that, they can control their own destiny for the second consecutive postseason to an extent.
Yeah, and that's huge. And you said earlier about, kind of talking about the ebbs and flows and how for a team that's 90 and 68, we may have panicked a little bit. But remember, probably a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago, the Yankees were a loss away from falling out of this playoff picture. And now a month and a half later, they are about to lead this picture. We obviously hope that they do lead this picture come tomorrow night, and that, we won't get on a recording and talk about it, but we'll certainly post about it and celebrate it. And you hope that is what the case is. And, we were talking last week about, not getting the Red Sox, maybe getting Detroit. Detroit's the perfect team you'd love to face if they can keep their playoff spot right now, but you're not going to based off how this looks. And I think, you put that all aside, especially if you can clinch home field throughout the American League side of the postseason. It's big. It's a lot bigger than people realize. You think about, first of all, to clinch home field, you also get the bye through the AL wildcard round, which is big because the AL wildcard round was, it saw some teams surprisingly get out last year that probably shouldn't have, or at least weren't thought to get out. So you avoid a potential collapse early. And then you get a team that's already played 2 or 3 playoff games. So they've already exhausted their top starters. It changes the dynamic of the start of the ALDS, and you're doing it with games 1 and 2 at Yankee Stadium. And then if something goes wrong when you go on the road to face whoever, game 5 is back at Yankee Stadium. And there's nothing like a clinching game in your home stadium because, game could be 0-0 at the end of the day, bottom of the 9th. All you need is that one run to come across. And luckily, thankfully, there's no extra inning run around second rule. So, you play real baseball in October. It's a beautiful thing. I digress on that. I won't go there tonight. But you look at all the advantages you get from securing home field. You get the games 1 and 2 and game 5 in the ALDS. In the ALCS, 1, 2, 5, and 7, I believe, are at home. Or no, 6 and 7 are at home. 4,
6,
5,
7.
or 3, 4, 5 are on the road, and then you get 6, 7 home. Same thing in the World Series, albeit, you have to see what happens on the National League side. But you think about a Yankee Stadium in October, and I don't know if there's a better baseball environment. I'll give props to Philadelphia and Red October. Absolutely. I'm not going to overlook them, especially because they're a team that, could end up seeing in the World Series. But, Yankee Stadium's maybe second, third on the list of a place in October. Honestly, Toronto does so well because they have the whole country behind them. But just the thought of being able to clinch at Yankee Stadium and having that go on. And like I said, skipping the wild card, that gives Fried and Rodon some more time to go. And they'll be going up against potentially the third, fourth starter in the rotation for whatever team the Yankees line up with in the ALDS if they can clinch home field advantage. So this is a lot bigger than win the AL East, because it's clear as day the winner of the AL East this year is home field advantage for the playoffs, is the top spot in the American League. And that cannot be understated in the postseason. It's huge. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. And especially, I gave the numbers last week. I don't have them pulled up this week. I'm not going to try to remember them off the top of my head. The Yankees have performed better at Yankee Stadium this year. A lot of teams perform better at home.
Yeah.
And you think about guys like Will Warren, who I've mentioned several times, a better pitcher at home. That allows him to potentially get a start in one of the 7-game series. He's not going to pitch in the ALDS. But if the Yankees have a 2-1 advantage or even a 3-1 advantage, in the ALCS, that allows him to get something. So it really changes the dynamics of everything. And if you're the Yankees, celebrating last night was awesome. And winning tonight was even better because you tie the Blue Jays, albeit they have the, tiebreaker because they kind of tormented the Yankees all regular season. But, you got to win tomorrow. You're playing the White Sox. You have to win tomorrow. Baltimore's not an easy task. You saw it over the weekend, but you got to beat Baltimore too. You have to use every game that you have to your advantage, especially with the Blue Jays playing a contending Red Sox team that's going to, make some noise into October. And, then the Blue Jays play the Rays, and then we become Rays fans. We've gone from, not wanting to root for anyone in the AL East besides the Yankees to right now we're rooting for the Red Sox. And come Friday, we're going to be rooting for the Rays. So it's fun time. I love the scoreboard watching. I like how Yes Network puts it up in the corner. But you cannot understate the importance of, wrapping up the American League East and thus wrapping up home field advantage for the American League side of the postseason. It worked. Sorry to cut you off again, but it worked last year, right? Think about the recipe for success in last year's postseason, and the Yankees had that home field advantage.
I'll give you some of the top batters and then some of the top pitchers. And obviously, some of these will not be gigantic comparisons. Aaron Judge, he's omitted from this conversation. He does well wherever you play him. But Cody Bellinger, 241 average, 304 on base percentage on the road, 11 home runs. Paul Goldschmidt, again, another guy who's kind of omitted from the conversation. He actually does 322 on the road. But Trent Grisham, 269, has 21 of his homers on the road, 259 for Rice, 12 homers on the road, 259 for Dominguez. Chisholm, just 207 on the road with 14 home runs, 225 for Wells, 239 for Giancarlo with 9 home runs. Ryan McMahon, 218 on the road. And then we look into some of the pitching. Carlos Rodon on the road, 318. Fried on the road, 328. Both of them have done fine on the road. Will Warren, 5.52 ERA on the road with 75 innings pitched. You look through some of this bullpen on the road, not that he has much higher ERA at home, 5.93 or lower ERA rather, 5.93 ERA on the road for Devin Williams in 30 1/3 innings pitched, 4.56 for Leiter Jr., 4.38 for Luis Heel, and you can continue to go down from there, and some of the numbers not too great. Camilo Duvall, 3.38, actually performs pretty well on the road, but then you look through it from there, and it's just not anything that gives you the most semblance of confidence. You look at some of these splits at home. 298 for Bellinger, who I told you very much struggles on the road. 298, 361 on base percentage, 18 of his home runs there. Volpe hits 260 at home. He also has 32 ribbies, 12 homers to his name at home. Jazz, the big differentiator there, 288 average, 17 home runs at home, 43 ribbies. The big sleep has not had the best average at home, but a 320 on base percentage, 21 runs driven in. Ben Rice, again, another one of those guys who has a higher average at home, but his on base percentage through the roof, his home runs through the roof at home. Giancarlo Stanton at home, 285, 323 OBP, 12 home runs at home. Ryan McMahon, another guy who's done better in terms of his OBP and his runs driven in at home. You look at Carlos Rodon, 287, Fried, 246, and then a guy like Will Warren, 328. Even Schlittler, 276 at home for his ERA that we're throwing out there. And then you look at some of the relievers. Luke Weaver, he's done pretty well at home through 29 and a third. Luis Gil at home, 2.30 ERA at home. And it just continues to go from there. Everybody does better from their friendly confines. It's pretty much been one of the biggest consistencies for the Yankees this year. There are a lot of holes on this team, and they are not perfect at home. They are not perfect on the road. We have pinpointed those holes all season long, but the thing is simply this. As Justin said earlier, it is a crowd that you feed off of. And sometimes we don't give crowds enough credit in sports because when the Yankees are on at home, their crowd is into it. And this is a team that has performed significantly better at the dish, significantly better on the bump at home this season. It's a bullpen that's fed off the energy. It's a rotation that's fed off it. And it's a lineup that's fed off it. So I understand that we are looking at a week ago what we called almost a pie in the sky dream of having home field advantage. It can happen. It's a legitimate chance. They are tied right now. And if they do get home field advantage, this is a Yankees team that goes from, listen, we're happy to make the postseason. It's a celebration now because this year has been such a rocky roller coaster. But it goes from the expectations of, maybe they make a run, maybe they make a deep run to, hell, if they control their own destiny, they could be in the World Series for the second consecutive year because of how much of a difference being at home makes.
And you built a lineup for Yankee Stadium. You built a left-handed heavy lineup. Jazz Chisholm, Ben Rice, Trent Grisham, Ryan McMahon, as much as he has been a disappointment at the plate, he could be a guy that provides a spark, right? Anyone could show up in the postseason. At some point, we were talking about maybe too many left-handers, but there's a reason the Yankee stats specifically for some of those guys, Bellinger, Jazz, Rice, Dylan just gave you those stats. They're lefties playing with that short porch. It's perfect. And how many times in the postseason have we seen the Yankees hit to the right side at Yankee Stadium? Greg Bird, Didi Gregorius, just two of the bigger home runs in Yankee recent postseason history. It came from left-handed hitters at Yankee Stadium. It is huge, and I get it. I'm not saying that the Yankees are the only team that can use the short porch when playing at Yankee Stadium. The opponent's going to have the exact same dimensions to play with, but it's the comfortability. It's about the routine. David Cohn said it perfectly last week or the week before on the Yes Network broadcast. He said it was one of Will Warren's starts, and I remember him saying it's something different about being at home, being able to wake up in your own bed, being able to go about your routine. You know how to get to the ballpark. You know which turns to make. You're not getting on a bus. You're driving yourself there. You get there when you want to. You go to your locker, not the locker given to you in the away locker room at an away park. It's all about routine. Baseball players are very routine players, and as much as that gets messed up with all the constant travel, that's why home field is so important. That's why we've seen improved numbers, and it's not just a Yankee phenomenon. That's why it's even more crucial, because the Blue Jays, I'd have to guess, in fact, I can look it up, and I have it in front of me. The Blue Jays are 50-27 at home this year. On the road, they're 40-41. The Red Sox, 46-32 at home, 41-39 on the road. Cleveland, 43-34 at home, 43-38 on the road. The Tigers, 46-35 at home, 39-38 on the road. You get it. I don't need to, keep reading it, although Seattle, it's one of the most prominent outside the Blue Jays, 49-27 at home, 39-42 on the road, under 500. It's a phenomenon around the league. You just perform better at home. We're not saying this is Yankee specific, but what we're saying is it makes it that much more important for the Yankees because whoever they go face, they're also better at home, clearly, because I just read all the postseason teams in the AL. They're better at home, and that's going to be something you deal with. And you deal with the away crowds that no matter who you go to, they're going to be ruckus in the postseason. How many times have the Yankees lost in Houston over the last couple of years? That Houston crowd is, one that you don't want to mess with. And obviously the Red Sox crowd, if you end up at Fenway for whatever reason, that's another crowd that you don't want to go deal with. You dealt with it in the 2018. No, that doesn't sound right. Is it the 2018? No, that was the series. Whenever they played the wild card game, the solo wild card game that Garrett Cole blew up, that type of stuff can all be negated when you play at Yankee Stadium. That's why it's so important, because every team is better when they're at home and when they're comfortable. So you need to lock in, as much as it was fun to celebrate. And I think that's where a lot of that conversation came from today, was it's not over. But Aaron Boone said it. In fact, I think we got one of the first curse words on Yes Network in a really long time when they showed his speech last night. And he said, enjoy this, and keep going, because it's not over. This is the first of what could be many celebrations for this team. And, I'd prefer if they get the AL East locked up, don't celebrate that. That's business as usual. Keep it going and then go into the DS and the CS. I guess you have more time to wear the hangover off, considering you'd get some extra days, but you get the point. It's about keeping it going. And I think the Yankees have all the tools in the shed to do it. It's not just the Yankees are hot. Every specific player I feel like we could name is hot, outside of a handful here and there. And that's what the beauty of this game is right now for the Yankees. After, we counted them out, and rightfully so. 5 games out of the AL or whatever, AL East, whatever it was last week, they deserve to be counted out, but they found their way back in, and credit to them.
And it really, as fun as it is for you and I that it's a shorter episode and that we can rifle through this stuff, it does make it a little bit tougher to talk about, because we don't have those holes to really pinpoint in this team. And I'm happy about it as a Yankees fan. You're happy about it as a diehard Yankees fan. It's got you and I talking about, well, maybe we make a trip in October to the Bronx and the
cheaper than the whiteout.
It is definitely cheaper than the whiteout right now. But I think the big thing, you said it there, is you wake up in your own bed. You have gone through this grind of 162 games. 81 of them, you are in your own bed. 81 of them, you are not. And it is, about approximately. But you get my drift here. The thing is that you have that certain confines, the friendly confines. And then when you have a crowd that you can play off of, a crowd that is rooting for you and pitch after pitch, at bat after at bat, it is a different environment. And that's why October is so definitive for a lot of these teams, that they might slug through the postseason, or the regular season, but they might come on in the postseason. And year in, year out, we are shocked by some of these teams that arise when the moment matters the most. And you know what? We look at 2 teams that caught fire last year. I keep going back to the New York Mets, the OMG Mets last year, that, they were such a fun team from pretty much late June on, with Jose Iglesias and all the fun they had. And we've obviously seen the year-long hangover of that this year, plus the addition of Juan Soto. And this is a team that, they still scare me in the postseason. As much as they have struggled in the regular season this year, they still have the resources. So it kind of brings me to my next point here, and I'll still leave the ticker below for the American League, because you can see that, and then you also have the National League there at the tail end. But I want to ask you this, because we talked about it vaguely last week, and I'll throw it to you first, and it doesn't have to be a super long thing, but my perspective on this is that there's got to be at least one team that you do not want to see in the postseason, whether that's on the National League side in the World Series or it's on the American League side. And I know last week I laid out like 3 teams I don't want to see. I don't want to see the Blue Jays. I don't want to see the Red Sox. I don't want to see the Tigers. But after a week has gone by, even if it is in the National League, who do you not want to see in the postseason?
Yeah, it's just tough, because we talked about it last week, and I agreed with you on the teams you named, but the Blue Jays have gone cold. You'd love to face them while they're cold in the, early in the postseason, if they can sneak by, because there's no way for the Yankees and Blue Jays to line up in, the first round. Actually, there is. So let me not say that, because the Red Sox could win out and the Yankees and Blue Jays could lose out. But you get the point. The Red Sox are hot right now. They beat the Blue Jays. They're the one team on the American League side that I would say right now I wouldn't want to face, because I think every other team has kind of gone cold. And I don't trust Cleveland to be great. I think it's kind of a fluky situation. And I think the Yankees can handle Seattle. So I'd say on the American League side, the Red Sox. But overall, the one team I really don't want to face, I don't want to face Philadelphia. I don't want to see them. I talked about Red October earlier. It's tough to get a win at Citizens Bank. I know the Yankees locked up the '09 World Series there, but that was years ago, 16 years ago to be exact, if anyone wants to remember how long it's been without the World Series win for the Yankees. But that's a team that's so deep and with so many powerful guys. And, we just talked about the short porch at Yankee Stadium. You know who would love that? Kyle Schwarber, a lefty power hitter who I think is second in the league with 55 home runs or whatever that number is. But they've got so many superstars. Castellanos, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, another lefty hitter that would love the short porch. And their pitching staff, Zach Wheeler leads it. No, he doesn't anymore because he got injured. Let me remind myself of that. But they've got talent and they've got depth. And I know they've had their ups and downs, their ebbs and flows like the Yankees have had this year. But it's that team that I just don't want to face one bit. I'd rather stick away from them. I think part of my hesitation to face them also could be the amount of people we know that are Philadelphia fans, and I don't want to hear it from them nonstop. I don't know as many fans from all these other teams except the Mets, but I truthfully am not worried about the Mets. Yes, they could make a run. They have the talent. They have what it takes to make a run, but look at them this year. They can't figure out their bullpen troubles. Their starters can't go more than 5 innings. I'm not worried about that in the postseason. So I would say my overarching team, Philadelphia, but when I narrow it down to the American League, the one team that I find really hot that I wouldn't want to face would be the Red Sox in the AL.
See, it's crazy that I don't want to agree with you. And unfortunately, I think I have to for the sake of this argument. And my team that scares me the most is not on the American League, which again scares me because we have changed our entire perspective from a week ago where we were talking about the teams that they might run into in the American League to who could they run into on the other side a little bit more legitimately. Boston, I don't want to see because I said this a week ago. This is a team that the kids are all right. They have done a hell of a job this season. And this is a team with Garrett Crochet with the entire lineup that they boast in the rotation, their lineup itself. They are a team that I don't want to run into. They're scary, they're feisty, and they're going to be hard out. So whether that's in the division series, whether it's in the wild card, whatever it may be, I don't want to see Boston. But if they do see Boston, it's going to be a hell of a series. It's going to be one for the books. It's just one that I don't know if it favors New York unless they have home field advantage, which, again, kind of rings true to the importance that we have placed on home field advantage for the first part of this episode. We talk about the National League. I want to say Red October. I have been the biggest fan of Red October when the Yankees aren't in the postseason for in the past couple of years. To the Justin's chagrin, he yells at me every single year that I root for Philly when the Yankees aren't in the postseason. We have way too many friends that are from Philadelphia. We have way too many friends that are Phillies fans.
We have way too many that would reach out to us immediately after a loss and be like, haha, losers.
We have way too many friends that I think we might have to go see at Xfinity Live if the Yankees do play Philly in the postseason. And in the World Series, rather. But I also, at the same time, although I want to pick them, it's got to be Los Angeles. They have too much talent. And that's kind of the thing for me that it weirdly, this episode feels very full circle on our whole season of episodes. But you said the thing about, I want you to go back to the ESPN radio quote of raising the mean, raising the standard. What was the quote from ESPN radio? Raising the mean?
No, returning to the mean.
Returning to the mean. This is a Los Angeles Dodgers team that, for them, they've been returned to the mean all season long. In fact, they've probably been performing below average from what you'd expect. Yeah. But this is a Los Angeles team that I don't think they give a rat's ass how they perform through 162. For them, it's how they perform through the end of the season, how they perform into November, and how they perform to try to defend their World Series crown. Dave Roberts has done it. As much as he says that it's kind of just a duo with him and Aaron Boone who get the pressure, get the results, get the a kind of innate responsibility that's on your shoulders each season, get back to the dance. It's a different responsibility for Dave Roberts. He's done it. He has handled it, and he has done a hell of a job doing it. And this team is the Avengers of baseball. They have every facet pretty much covered. And you know what? They're the sleeping giant right now. And I know we all have kind of looked over them right now and said, oh, it's Philly. Oh, it's Milwaukee. Oh, it might be Chicago on the National League. And then in the American League, listen, Toronto, they're the team of friendship. The Yankees are the Yankees. They were there a year ago. Boston, the kids are all right. Detroit's got Scooble. Seattle's got Big Dumper. We have all been overlooking Los Angeles, it feels like, all season long. And here they are, the sleeping giant. They're in the dance. They have been back here again. And however it may work out, they're in the dance. So That's kind of where my perspective stands. That I probably would have picked Red October. I probably would have picked Philly. As much as you hate that I love Philly when we're not Yankees fans, I gotta say the Dodgers, because they knocked us out of it all a year ago. They are still the sleeping giant. And Dave Roberts, as much as he's got all the tools at his disposal, is still a maestro when it comes to managing late October into November.
I've got two things. First, I'll start with the funny one is I think you were supposed to be born in Philadelphia.
I think I was too.
The way you root for the Phillies once the Yankees are out in Red October, and then when we were down at the Super Bowl,
March is on.
When we were down at the Super Bowl, you're starting the EAGLES Eagles chants with everyone down in New Orleans.
Broad Street or on Bourbon Street?
On Bourbon Street. And then we go back to State College, and you have to go get the Saquon 2K shirt that Champs sells, one of the bars downtown, just so you can, I think that one was more to get me mad. But at the same time, you love like everything Philly related. That being said, I'm really glad you're a Yankee fan, or else I'd be talking to myself every week. But the other point you made, and it's a good one, LA's been there. They've done it, right? And earlier, and I think we glanced over it maybe a little bit too quickly on our first little ticker, this Boone became the second manager in MLB history to make the postseason in 7 of his first 8 seasons. Dylan, do you know who the other manager is?
Dave Roberts.
It's Dave Roberts, right? So he's been there. And in fact, you can extend Dave Roberts because he's been there for more than 8 years now. You can include the fact that he's been to multiple World Series, won multiple World Series. He's got his team. And a lot of those guys already have rings. And that's a difference between, the Dodgers and every other team. And maybe not, Houston, who's won recently, and, some of the other teams that might sneak in that have rings recently. But it's a lot of fresh new teams that don't have the ring on their fingers lately. And the one team that's there that consistently has won lately and been in these big situations is LA. So you're right. And after last year's collapse against LA, you probably don't want to see them, especially with the big names in their lineup. They're a deeper team than Philadelphia. They get overlooked because you're right. They've kind of, returned to the mean this year. They've had a ton of injuries that have hurt them consistently. But their lineup is all-star, all-star, all-star. 1 through 9 is an all-star. And their pitching staff, 1 through 5, is an all-star. And their, bullpen, 1 through 8, it's all all-stars, or at least guys capable of winning the or going to the all-star game. That team is just as deep, if not deeper, than every team in the postseason, and they've got the experience. And experience matters in the postseason. As much as people want to say, no, why did the Yankees and, Dodgers go the furthest last year? They were playing teams that were inexperienced. Why did Baltimore get bumped early last year? Because they didn't have the experience. They had all that young talent. They didn't have the experience quite to get there. So, yeah, I mean, LA is another team I would not want to face, especially the only reason you'd want to face them is because revenge is a dish best served cold. And, October in New York is kind of cold, and you'd be serving some revenge if you can win it, especially if you can make the catch in the 5th inning of Game 5.
Well, there was going to be a hell of a lot more that would have had to happen for it all to work out.
But yeah, I know.
I do love your comment about if we weren't friends. I don't know who you'd be talking to, but I also probably would have been born in Philadelphia, especially with my rabid fandom. But yes, I did start the EAGLES Eagles chant on Bourbon Street, but it might just be because I unfortunately have to watch the New York Jets right now.
I was going to say nothing was better when the one day I got to come back at you. While we were getting pizza, and I told those kids.
Yeah, I told everybody in State College I'm not actually an Eagles fan. I almost got jumped.
Revenge is a dish best served hot there because the pizza was hot.
Anyways, I'm going to talk about Penn State in a moment here because I figured out what our judgmental Justin and positive price segment today.
I have something to go along with it, so let's be ready here.
Okay, I'm going to keep this pinstripe panic meter short on my end, and I'll let you go if you have something, but I don't have a ton of panic this week. I really don't. I do feel pretty confident in this team right now. And that's odd coming from me. And I'm certainly going to assume you're going to have something. So it won't be odd coming from both of us. It's still the bullpen. But for me, it's more than the bullpen. And I'm going to give it probably a 5.9 just because I picked the number out of my ass right now. I'm still scared about the rotation. I'm scared about the inexperience of the rotation. And that's where my pinstripe panic meter is going to be because Max Fried, I trust. I trust that he has come on, and it's kind of fitting based on what you and I ran through when he was in his slump of what he did in Atlanta. Sometimes in these later months of the summer, he just has struggled. But in Atlanta, towards the back end of his seasons, he would come on strong. It seems he has come on more than strong in the back end of this season. So I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about Rodon for the most part. Then it comes down to Schlittler. It comes down to the numbers I gave you on Warren on the road, and it comes down to Heels still coming off injury. I'm worried about who that third starter is. I'm worried about how the kind of starters fold from there. And so for me, it's a 5.9. And suddenly it's a weird conversation because a couple weeks ago, actually, rather, we were talking about who that starter would be, who those starters would be to round out the rotation in the postseason. I still think it should be Schlittler and then probably Heel, or probably switch around the order there and throw Warren in the bullpen. But I also think that Warren has staked his claim for being Mr. Consistency this season. So there are so many moving pieces in who should start games in the postseason for the New York Yankees that I'm going to give it a 5.9, especially because the bullpen's been hot right now. And I figure you'll probably target there or some other inadequacy for the team right now. But for me, it just comes down to you're going to have to figure out how to shuffle the deck. And with a manager who, albeit all his experience in the postseason, has failed to handle that well sometimes, I'm curious how he will do it. I think all five of them deserve to be on the roster in the postseason. This shouldn't be one of those things where somebody misses it, especially Warren. If somehow he's the fifth guy and the odd man out of a starting rotation, he still deserves to make the postseason roster. And I think that that's kind of where things are going to get weird because Schlittler might have the best kind of transition to a reliever for the postseason. So there's going to be a really weird shuffling the deck here with the rotation. For me, it's kind of a 5.9 because I don't know how Boone will manage it. And I don't know at the tools that are at his disposal how much experience all of them have outside of Heel. So it's going to be a really weird rotation management into how he gets into the bullpen. So oddly enough, that's my pinstripe panic meter here now that we know they're in the postseason dance.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I could point to some deficiencies in the lineup, but at the end of the day, the top of the lineup is hot right now. And the guys that are going to carry, even if Giancarlo's not hitting right now, he's going to turn it on. And if you're worried about Judge in October, if Judge goes cold, Giancarlo's bound to get hot. They kind of, they do work together a lot, but a lot of times if one's hot or one's cold, the other one's red hot, and it works like that. So I'm not really worried about that lineup. Plus, it's been one of the best, if not the best, offense in the league all season long. Even when they went cold, it wasn't because of their offense. It was because of their pitching staff. Mind you, their offense has the MVP of the league. He cemented that, in my opinion, tonight. 2-home-run game. He only trails Raleigh by 6 home runs, I believe it is now, 58-52. And every other offensive stat favors Judge except runs batted in. If it's Cal Raleigh, it's because of Yankee fatigue. It's because of Aaron Judge fatigue. We talked about that last week, so I digress. My pinstripe panic meter still is the pitching rotation and the pitching staff as a whole, just like you. I'd put it up a little bit more than a 5.9 personally. I'd put it probably like a 7. To be honest with you, you've got Heel, you've got Fried. You trust both of them. Or not Heel, sorry. You have Rodon, you have Fried as your 1-2. Backwards, actually. It would be your 2 and your 1. Fried's your 1, Rodon's your 2 in the postseason. And you trust them. And you've got some names in the bullpen that you trust. David Bednar, probably the second half MVP for this team. Devin Williams now has 7 straight scoreless appearances. I don't see him being a, 8th inning guy for the Yankees, but he can eat an inning too, and you can feel comfortable now. Luke Weaver, you were right. I'll give it to you. He has looked better. He hasn't looked perfect, but he has looked better as of late. I mean, even Camilo Doval has turned it around a little bit. You have guys turning it around, but it's still a hold your breath. And in the postseason, a lot of times when you're holding your breath, you don't let out a sigh of relief. You let out an ugly sigh because something went wrong, because you're facing, not the White Sox. You're facing the Red Sox or the Blue Jays, whoever the case is. And I think where a lot of concern lies is starting pitcher number 3, like you just talked about. And I think the general way to look at it is when you think of Michael Kay, Paul O'Neill, David Cone, Jack Curry, Bob Lorenz, you got to listen because they know stuff. They're not talking about Will Warren really being in consideration for starting pitcher number 3 in the postseason. It has strictly been a debate between Luis Heel and Cam Schlittler. Why? Because their velocities are typically higher. They've got a little bit of extra stuff. If last night proved anything, it's that Heel isn't as effective as he once was. His velocity was down to 92-ish, kind of sitting real low in the 90s last night. That's not the Luis Gil that was effective last year. The Luis Gil that was effective was 97, 98. And we've seen it, but his command isn't there when he's that high. So he's taking stuff off. Cam Schlittler has the Yankees, probably top 1,000 pitch velocities this season at this point, and he's got the stuff. Sure, he runs into some trouble, but not as much as Gil. Gil has, let me pull this up real quick. Gil has 31 walks in 52 innings over his 10 starts. Cam Schlittler, 13 starts, 66 innings, 30 walks. I mean, they both have high walk numbers. Walks hurt in the postseason, and right now it's Gil who's having more problems with his walks than Cam Schlittler is. And I think it's crazy to say. I don't think we would have sat here in May saying, Cam Schlittler, you're going to start, or even in July when that first, when I was in State College and you were going to be there the next day and we're talking about his first career start. We would have never guessed Cam Schlittler would have been starting pitcher number 3 in the postseason, but I don't see how you can not go with him. And in my opinion, I think Gil shouldn't even be consideration. I think it should be Warren or Schlittler, and it matters home or away. I think you can pitch Will Warren in the postseason at home. I don't think you pitch him against the Red Sox ever because he's got an ERA over 9 against them, and I don't think you pitch him on the road. But if you happen to, need him, I think a game 3 would be okay. He's got good stuff, and you're not looking for 7, 8 innings out of Will Warren. Give me 4, give me 5. Let the bullpen piece everything together. Weaver's going to go 2 innings in the postseason. Bednar, heck, you might ask him for a 3-inning save if your season relies on it. That type of stuff. So, I mean, I'm worried. I think I'm a little bit more worried than you. For the final 4 games of the regular season, they're telling. Because Schlittler's got another start. Gil's got another start. Will Warren has another start. And all these bullpen guys have it. I want to make one other quick point. I believe I saw today Ian Hamilton's got like a 1.29 ERA in Scranton in the month of September. I would not be surprised if Ian Hamilton works his way onto the playoff roster in replace of Paul Blackburn. And then you have another guy who's had that history with velocity. I know he struggled lately, but he's changed some things up, and MLB hitters haven't seen that. I know I mentioned Hamilton last week. I'm just putting it out there that I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. I understand Blackburn, being a guy to eat innings, but Ryan Yarbrough is still sitting right there. And Yarbrough is probably going to get a start over these next 4 games because you don't have anyone lined up for Sunday. But that's just my quick take out of my ass kind of thing, just like you said before. I'm just worried with the pitching staff, just like you.
Oddly enough, it's funny that your ace in the hole of Paul Blackburn waits until or Ryan Yarbrough rather, for the starting opportunity, waits until the final day of potentially the season. But Paul Blackburn did play an impact too. He's done a hell of a job. He was the second ace in the sleeve, at least I guess for me, not you, because you've had Ryan Yarbrough coin that. So we get into the back end of the show here, and we have been uber positive about the Yankees today, pretty much. You have a special guest with you there. Shout out Mel. We're going to get into the back end of the show. She's not there now?
No, she is back here.
Oh, I thought she ran away. We'll get rid of the pinstripe panic meter. We'll get into this because this is it. This is our last show before the whiteout. Yankees talk can kind of put a pause. At this point, we have made it as important as possible. They need to win the American League East, control the home field advantage. And Justin and I will be very, very happy men this weekend, outside of the fact that they got to win the whiteout. This is I loved, if you haven't already read it, I'm almost going to bet $1,000 you've already read it. Pete Thamel's article today about Drew Aller was fantastic. The difference. Probably one of the most well-written articles I've seen in some time. Just an incredible breakdown of Drew Aller, this team, this kind of era of Penn State football. I think the consensus is they've held some stuff back. Oregon has emptied the clip because they've had a little bit tougher competition, albeit Rip Mike Gundy. They have had a hell of a run. They have done really good work. Dan Lanning's Dan Lanning. Dante Moore has been really, really good, which I'm very happy to see because I love Dante Moore. I love Puddles with all my heart, but I feel like judgmental Justin, positive price, this week of all weeks should be reserved for a little bit of football talk for the game you and I should be in the stadium on Saturday, but regardless, we will be in the 814 regardless for on Saturday. So I'll kind of throw it to you first, and then I think we'll kind of dictate where we go from here. But it is a top 10 clash. It's a game that we have looked to for almost a year, And it's a game that I feel like the anticipation, we're going to talk about it on the Catskill Sportsport with Dylan Price when you come into town tomorrow, I guess at the time this airs this afternoon. But we're going to talk about it whenever you get with me, and we will be together for the game. We will be together to do the Catskill Sportsport with Dylan Price. But I do think a little bit of a portion of Bomber Boys today should be devoted to one of the biggest games in our time as Penn State alumni. It's the biggest game, but time as Penn State fans, Penn State, Oregon, this Saturday, the Whiteout.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge game. Now, I want to start with something that I've been seeing that I just really don't like, which is a lot of people saying that this is the biggest game of James Franklin's career. I will tell you that I can name 3 games that were bigger for his career. He played he played SMU, Boise State, and then Notre Dame last year in the college football playoffs. There was no bigger games until he gets back to the college football playoff than those 3 right there. This could be the biggest regular season game of his career. There's expected to be 150 recruits or something around that number in the stadium on Saturday, as well as like many of the top recruits in the country. It's not just 150 recruits. It's 150 of the top recruits in the country, which is pretty insane to think they're all going to what I would say is the biggest game of the week. I know, SEC fans will say Alabama, Georgia's better, but, I digress on that point and just talking about the game itself. This is a Penn State team that has had lackluster performances through its first 3 games of the season against Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. And you can look at the scores and you could say, Justin, what do you mean those are lackluster performances? Well, if you watch the games, you could tell that Drew Aller's timing has been off. The offensive line has struggled against stunts, and I can tell you, Oregon saw that on film. Oregon is going to use that against Penn State until their 2 tackles, Drew Shelton and Nolan Rucci, can prove they can stop the stunts that have attacked them all season and made them problematic. Nicholas Singleton struggled running the ball, and making cuts. Katron Allen's been great. I think Katron Allen has been one of the best running backs in the nation. The wide receiver room has been, as expected for Penn State, making big plays for a room that hasn't in a couple of years. And the tight ends have filled Tyler Warren's spot. The defense has looked great. Again, competition matters, though. The level of play that Nevada, FIU, and Villanova has provided is not the level of play you're going to see from Dan Lanning in Oregon this week. And that's for sure. And I think I have to stop real quick and check on the dog because it sounds like she's eating something. So you take it from here.
All right. There's a guy that you and I talked about a year ago. I knew this episode was going to go off the rails. Didn't think it would go to this degree. There's a guy. I'm actually going to wait to say his name until Justin gets back. But listen, Oregon's pass rush still scares me. This is a team that's defense still scares me. Dan Lanning still scares me because I always say this sentiment, and it's a sentiment that Justin has heard me say 1,000 times over on my sports show. It's honestly a sentiment that I kind of live by when it comes to sports as a whole and really life as a whole. There is nothing scarier than someone or a team with absolutely nothing to lose. I'll say that one more time because Justin just put his earbuds back in. A motto that I live by, not just in sports and in life. There is nothing scarier than a team or with someone who has nothing to lose. This Oregon team can win. They could win on Saturday. They could win the rest of the way, and they could easily coast their way into the postseason. They could also lose on Saturday, and it's not going to change a whole lot. They'll still probably find their way to the postseason, and they will still be there when the season comes to a close. So they are a team with nothing to lose. This is a Penn State team that is going to have to go up against, and I waited to say his name until you're here, that they have to go up against Mateo Uiagalelei.
Uiagalelei, you got it there.
Yup. Even though it took until we went to Indy last year, I got his name right. They have a hell of a pass rush. They have a hell of a defense. They have a Dan Lanning who is going to, hi, Mel, they are going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at Drew Aller. To me, that's why I brought up Pete Thamel's article. This kind of comes down to him. This kind of comes down to, can he make the plays? And it kind of comes down to if James Franklin can get out of his own way. And it's really those 2 guys who will define how Saturday goes. It's scary because you and I are investing our hard-earned money, our hard-earned time, our hard-earned energy into going out there. But I'm excited for it one way or the other. It's another chapter in the Penn State football legacy. And I'm happy about it. I think it's going to be a great game. I mean, if it's anything like the Big Ten Championship, it's going to be an incredible matchup. The whiteout should play a big factor. And that's kind of the gist, I think. I mean, I kind of took up where you left off. I don't know if you had anything else before you had to go get Mel.
Yeah, I think first of all, it was toilet paper that since we store the extra toilet paper down here that she found. So that's what she was getting at. But I think I stopped her in time. You're right though about this really falling on Drew Aller. I mean, you think about, and I think the one thing we haven't talked about is what he's done in big games. And part of me, if you already talked about it, but he struggled against Michigan and Ohio State his first year as a starter. He struggled last year against Ohio State in Penn State's biggest regular season game of the year. He struggled against Oregon. His numbers looked great if you don't factor in completion percentage and all that, but he struggled against Oregon. He struggled at times in the postseason. He struggled in that second half against Notre Dame, and he hasn't come up clutch at times. So it does fall on him, but a lot of it also falls on Dante Moore and Oregon and what they could possibly do in facing a hostile environment. They haven't faced one like this year, and Dan Lanning's one of the best motivators. He's going to use that against them. This team is just so damn talented. 5 stars all over the place. Good defense. They've struggled against the run a little bit, but this is going to be an exciting matchup, and this is going to be exciting for college football, and I think it's going to be one of the games of the year. Now, that being said, Dylan, if you're good, I'm going to get off judgmental Justin and positive Price for a minute. I got to bring something up that really bothered me this week. The Bomber Boys are supposed to stick together through thick and thin, and you came at my throat on our other podcast, and I have
brought this clip up here too?
In the pudding. I've got this,
right,
so let's listen to
But
this.
There's one person in this group who I still think just rolls the dice and tries to piss people off with this poll. Justin, how are you, buddy?
I can cut it off right there. I don't need to say any more. You came at me this week on our other podcast. If you haven't listened, Locked and Long Shots, everywhere you find your podcast. You came at me. The Bomber
confidently
together. You didn't even try to hide it. You could have hit it with somebody in this group, does this and that. No, you called me out afterwards. I was offended. Sitting in this exact chair 4 nights ago or 3 nights ago. I was offended by that. It was 2 nights ago, but that was ridiculous.
So first thing, the worst thing that you ever figured out because you have too much time on your hands is how to get fucking videos and these things because you did it on Monday when we recorded. You're doing it now. Let's air it out. For everyone who's wondering, we do a group poll every week on Locks and Long Shots, which I guess is a part of the Bomber Boys podcast network at this point because we all record on the same account. But I have to say, every week we do these polls. I think I am probably the most close to you in a lot of opinions. I would say of our friends, I think you and I agree on a lot, and it's why we're very good friends. But when we disagree on something, I am usually the first to call you out and vice versa. I have held this standard that I hold you accountable and vice versa. But your bullshit takes on Texas, your whole propaganda about LSU and some of these other teams, it pissed me off. And then we add in that you had Penn State at number 7. So thank God Josh was in my corner, and Thomas just decides to be Switzerland to take no take on any of this every time. But thank God Josh was in my corner, so I had somebody with me. But for those that didn't watch Locks and Long Shots, please go check it out. But those that did, you know that I was in the right. Justin is a hater.
Right. Everything I said was backed by facts. Nothing I said was wrong.
It wasn't. All right. Listen, we're going to start it out this week.
Into it.
This week will be the big differentiator in the college football landscape. The best part for all of it, we're going to be together, which is terrible for the sake of Bomber Boys because we're going to have spent way too much time together. By the time we get together on hopefully Tuesday, we're going to want to kill each other. But I digress. It's going to be a hell of a college football week. It's going to be a hell of a Yankees week because pretty much everything will get sorted out by the time we get together again and the postseason starts.
The last time that there was this big of a game at Beaver Stadium that you and I were there for, Paul Goldschmidt signed with the Yankees, and that's been pretty good. So I'm just saying maybe something good comes out of and Penn State won in what was a whiteout in the playoffs against SMU. I'm just saying there are some connections here.
I'm aiming for our shortest episode of all time, and I'm the host, so I'm going to try to sign this thing off. Listen, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Bomber Boys Pod. If you want to call it X, you can call it that. We're not going to call it that. At least I'm not. Subscribe to our YouTube at Bomber Boys Podcast. Follow us on Spotify. It's the same thing. You can find us anywhere, everywhere if you look up Bomber Boys and probably just Pod. You don't even need to get to the cast. But all I'll say is this. We got a hell of a week ahead football-wise, hell of a week ahead baseball-wise. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege. It's an honor to bring you this pod every single week. We're in a very, very good mood as we chat today. Justin, what's ahead for you this weekend? You got anything big coming up?
Yeah, I have to drive to Monticello
All right,
now?
all right, all right. You can stop there. But we're
The
going
whiteout.
to it's going to be a hell of a time. And listen, we might have some content on locks and long shots. We're definitely
Come
going
here,
to have
Mel,
some
say goodbye.
content for you here. Mel's going to say goodbye. We're going to say goodbye. And you and I will get together again, Justin, at least tomorrow in 24 hours, way less than 24 hours at this point by the time we're recording. And all of us will get together again whenever we do with Bomber Boys into the postseason, baby. We're dancing. Yeah, I'm not going to sing again, but we're hoping that wherever you are, wherever you may be, you have a great football weekend. You have a great end of the Major League Baseball regular season. And until we all get together again, this has been Bomber Boys. Mel, you want to say goodbye?
She's back here doing something bad again. I don't know where she went.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.